Hey everyone, welcome back for another video of Truths on Racism. This week we'll be talking about black people. Let's get to the video.
Alright, have you guys seen racism towards black people while you were at Endicott? Or just in general?
I haven't. I can think of.
Not at Endicott, but at my high school. Came from an all-white high school, so especially for sports, when playing against other teams with black individuals, my team, some players on my team would make racist comments and almost put them as they're more superior than us. How they're often stereotyped as better athletes.
When you hear people saying racist things, do you often speak up?
Sometimes, but other times I kind of just let it go right over my head and not say anything about it.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Generally depends on the situation, but I'd say most of the time I like to think I would.
In our society today, between black people and white people, do you think there's still segregation?
I would say so. It's definitely not as severe, obviously, as in history, but there definitely is some segregation.
Yeah, it can always get better from what it is now. I mean, there's still not equality between the two races, and it has to change.
Alright, and as you said before about stereotypes, what stereotypes have you seen, in general, or just even in sports?
The most is the athletic stereotype, how blacks are superior than whites or any other race in specific sports such as basketball or even football at times. Can run faster, jump higher, stuff like that.
I would definitely the same thing is definitely around sports. I think in basketball and football and sports like that.
Okay. So the first question I have is, what does race mean to you?
Okay, let's go first. I guess just where you come from and who you are as a person, how your background impacts who you are, I guess. That's what it means to me.
I think for me it's basically what your heritage is and how you can basically show that with who you are as a person.
I don't know, it's a really hard question. I do think it has to, I don't know if it has as much with, I think it just has to do with culture and your background. I don't think that you necessarily have to stick to where you're born. I don't really think about the fundamentals a lot, so it's kind of hard for me to say. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not a black and white question. Everyone has their
Yeah,
own.
I know.
Yeah.
I would definitely just say the culture you're born to is I guess from my perspective what you would qualify as your race. I guess it's hard.
Okay. The second question I have is, do you speak up when you hear people saying racist things or racist comments?
Yeah. I guess thankfully I haven't encountered so many situations like that, but I definitely think I would, because it's just people shouldn't be degraded for who they are, so I would definitely speak up if I was in that situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's fair to the person. Just want to turn out.
I've had conversations with my family about it mostly. In public conversation it doesn't really come up. So, but if it did come up in public, I feel like I would speak up about it, especially if it was somebody who was close to me saying it. Otherwise, it'd feel a little bit awkward, but that's just a personal thing.
What stereotypes do you associate with black people?
This is more of a society, I don't believe it, but when I think of stereotypical things that society in general associates, the whole ghetto thing that people think is real, and sometimes something is, but that doesn't, I don't like generalizations. I really hate that, especially with any race. So I guess that's the general thing.
Yeah, I agree with her.
I would agree, but also I just have I have a really diverse hometown, so it's really hard for me to take people at face value for most of the time. I have to talk to them first. But that's just where I grew up. I don't know how it is for other towns or whatever.
What do you think about the Black Lives Matter campaign?
I think it's definitely important because especially with all that violence that went on, like, people need to, like, know that there's, like, this hierarchy of, like, the white male, like, society, and that needs...
Cis white scum.
Yeah, so, and people definitely need to be aware that, like, you know, like, we're all human, so I think it's definitely important.
Yeah, I think that, basically, like, people should just care about each other and they shouldn't be, like, fighting over who you are, like, what color your skin is and everything. And just, like, I mean, like, obviously, it goes back to, like, whatever time, but I think that our society kind of grew from that, a big step, and, I think that we can learn a little more, too, and help each other out with that.
I feel like, so the Black Lives Matter campaign, like, itself, I feel like it's, like, something that also kind of needed to happen, because, like, a lot of people argue that, like, there's a lot of violence from the protesters, but at the same time, like, people have tried to, you know, change the way people think about race, like, you know, in a civic way, a more peaceful way, but it just hasn't been doing anything. And sometimes, and especially because violence has broke out because of it, because of, like, violence is happening, and it just makes sense that it would be returned with more violence. And sometimes that has to happen. And so it made perfect sense to me when I heard about that kind of stuff. So I feel like things are just going to keep happening. I don't know what's going to happen. But, like, I do think it's really important that we recognize what it stands for rather than what's happening within it, you know?
Yeah.
Do you still think there's segregation in society between black people and white people?
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I do think so.
It might not be as apparent as, like, back then where they had, like, oh, like, the black water fountain, white water fountain. Like, it's not like that anymore, but socially it definitely is, and just, like, the different expectations society has for different races. So it's definitely there. It's not as obvious, like, literally, but you can still sense it.
Also kind of funny that, like, a lot of people think it's not there, and that actually emphasizes it a bit, because it's not, like, because then people let a lot of things slide, because people are like, oh yeah, it's not as bad as it used to be, and that sort of thinking kind of, like, it just makes it worse in a lot of ways. It's like that with pretty much every major change these days. And, like, even for, like, women.
Well, you know, I agree with them, and I think that we kind of see it more on, like, social media and stuff like that, and I think that that's a really, like, huge aspect in today's world with this topic, but, I definitely do think that, like, from the past to now, it's definitely different, but it's still here, and it's still, like, a huge thing in our world today.
It's definitely prevalent on social media, if anything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then I have one last question.
What's up?
Do you think it's possible to combat the racism or the separation, like, between these two groups of people?
I don't think that you can combat it as a whole, because it's people's thinking you need to change, and that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
That is so hard to change as
And
a
it's
whole.
hard to, like,
You
agree.
can't, like, there are dumbass people out there. Like,
Yeah.
and a lot of them are in very high authority positions. And they're making dumbass decisions because they're dumbasses. So, and, you know, they have these opinions that are just, like, and they're not going to change, because that's just how they grew up, and that's just how they think. But, so it's going to be, like, I don't think it's possible to do it altogether, but it's possible to try and, you know, combat the things that they try to do. You can't change them, but you can combat their actions, I feel.
Yeah, like, going off what she said, like, you can't make them agree with anybody, but you can try to, like, make baby steps at least to try to end the violence that was going on, make sure it doesn't happen again. So at least, hey, listen, like, you have that opinion, but don't go, like, doing that again. So, I don't know, it's one of those things.
Police officers need more proper training.
Yeah,
I feel.
unfortunately,
And they also need to be paid better
Mm.
if they're actually going to. Because I think a lot of the reasons that they get off on a lot of things because they don't get paid as much as a lot of other jobs do. That's why, like, in my town, a cop caused a huge accident, but he didn't get fined or anything. He just was demoted. And I thought that was really weird. Like, because he wasn't penalized, like, you know, in a legal way. He was just demoted in his job.
What stereotypes are usually associated with Black people? Like, they don't have to be things that you believe, but things like...
They're good at basketball.
Yeah.
I don't know.
For some reason, they like Kool-Aid and watermelon and fried chicken.
But don't we all love fried chicken?
No.
Like the sassy Black woman stereotype.
That is true.
It's like...
The backup blackout.
Yeah. I don't need no man. I'm an independent Black woman. That's a thing. I mean, it's not a thing, but it's a thing that people think.
Uh-huh.
What do you think about the Black Lives Matter campaign?
I think it's cool. I think it's bullshit when people say all lives matter.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in like this particular sense that is definitely irritating when people are like, white lives matter too. And it's like, we have everything.
Yeah.
Like, stop. I mean, like, people do go over the top with like any kind of campaign because people are good at that. But yeah, I think in that sense, for like how much shit Black people have and do go through, like, it's fair. It's like definitely a fair campaign to have.
I mean, it's just, a lot of it is just to, like, raise awareness for the problems that Black people have.
Yeah.
And instead, like, mainly white people are just like, no, you're wrong, you don't have issues, like, fuck you.
Like, it's designed to bring awareness to the problems that Black people deal with, but white people turn it into, like, a no, you're saying Black people are better than white people, and that's not true, and then they turn it into, like, white people are better, and, like, that's totally not the point of it.
Do you still think there's segregation in our society between Black people and white people?
100%. All the time. Like, not as much in the North, but definitely in the South.
Yeah.
Like, you hear slurs and... Like, I mean, especially, it's mostly with, like, the older generation that, like, I've literally seen, like, older women walking down the street and they'll pass a Black man and just, like, hide their purse. Because they just, like, assume every Black man is going to steal from them, which is obviously false. But you see that a lot, like, especially with police and police brutality. It's, like, typically towards Black people and Black men, and that's not fair. Because, I mean, stereotypes come from something, typically. So I feel like, yeah, there is some reason... I don't want this to sound racist at all. Like, feel free to, like, punch me in the face. There is, like, some reason why police are, like, more cautious of Black men for some reasons, but there should be more security for white men going in movie theaters. You know what I mean? So there's, like, there is the inequality in that sense because, like, white people do shit, too. And, like, other races do things. You know what I mean? So it's, like, there is racism to an extent.
When you hear people saying, like, racist things about Black people or, like, using racial slurs, do you, like, stand up to them or say something or just, like, ignore it?
I would say I stand up for it. I had an ex-boyfriend who was very racist, and it pissed me off, and I called him out on it all the time.
Yeah, I've never heard, like, explicit racism, but I had a friend who used the N-word all the time, and I was like, you literally can't say that.
Same.
And then she was like, no, I'm a minority, I can say it. And I was like, you're fucking, like, barely Spanish. Like, her family acts like they're Italian. Like, you have no right to say the N-word if you're not Black. Like, fuck off.
I'll stick up to things to a point, too, because, like, I think humor, like, at the expense of white people or, like, white American girls is hilarious, you know? So, like, I can laugh at myself. So I feel like if things are to the extent where it's offensive to someone, then absolutely I'll stick up to it. But I think at the same time, people should be able to laugh at themselves sometimes. Yeah. So I feel like there is, like, a thin line with that. But if it's, like, extreme, then absolutely.